Good evening once again, listeners of CFUZ 92.9 FM in Penticton. My name is Dave Del Rizzo. I'm joined by Nils Finson.
Good evening.
And we are bringing you the fourth live Penticton Mayoral and City Council Forum. This one brought to you by First Things First Okanagan. And we are live at the Okanagan College campus in Penticton on Duncan Avenue. I think there's still some seats available if you wanted to run down and grab one. But you could also stay in the comfort of your home and turn on your radio, tune to 92.9 FM, and listen in as we will be carrying the entirety of this forum, which is set to start in about 5 minutes. Nils, what are your observations in the room tonight so far?
Right now, my observation is that the on-board sign I brought and just hooked up a minute ago isn't doing its job.
The on-air sign, you mean?
The on-air sign, my mistake. But aside from that, it's very quiet, actually. Oh, thank you for fixing that, Dave. I appreciate it.
Look at that. It's on, because we are on the air. Broadcasting live, 92.9 FM in Penticton, British Columbia, or listening online at cfuz.ca. And Peach City Radio is very happy to bring these forums to you. This one in particular we'll be recording as we did with all of them, and we will be, in the coming days, check our website out, cfuz.ca, where we will provide links to the recorded audio that you can listen to and download and listen to at your leisure to make yourself a more educated voter.
Yes. So I was busy focusing on that sign, but if you mentioned this is the, this. Oh my gosh, my mistake. I should be more prepared for this. But the organization that's organizing this, is the First Things First Okanagan. Did you mention that already?
I did.
Oh, my mistake.
It's the First Things First Okanagan Penticton All Candidates Forum on the Environment and Sustainability. So I think we've heard a forum that was hosted by the Chamber of Commerce talking about business issues. We've heard forums hosted by seniors groups that were dealing with seniors issues, and we've heard last night dealing with housing issues. And this one's going to be dealing with environment and sustainability. So a lot of interesting topics are going to come up here. I imagine we'll be talking about bike lanes. I imagine we'll be talking about the environment in general. And it'll be great to hear what all the candidates have to say on these issues.
Yeah, I did take a breeze through the questions that were provided to the presenters or the candidates here. And a lot of them, like you say, are focusing on stuff like water conservation, energy, protecting natural habitat, and the like. So yeah, this is it's going to be pretty interesting tonight. I'm very... I think of the events we've participated in so far, I'm interested in this one the most.
Let's shoot it over to the event now, and we can listen in.
With gratitude, we recognize and acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded ancestral land of the Sahilik people, the Okanagan Nation. In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we express hope for a different kind of relationship with Canada's Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples, one based on honor, respect, and peace as we live together on this land. My name is Jim Beattie. I'm on the board of directors of First Things First Okanagan, and we're very, very happy to welcome you here tonight to this All Candidates Forum. This is the third All Candidates Forum that First Things First has sponsored, and we feel that having a discussion about climate and the impacts of climate change on our communities is something that our elected people have to be very aware of. So we hope that you will be attentive to the answers that they give to these important questions, and we appreciate the participation of all the candidates, and we also appreciate your attendance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. I'm Kati Hendry. I'm also part of the First Things First board, and I'll be the moderator tonight. I understand that this is, I think, the fourth night in a row that the candidates have been doing this, so this is quite a marathon. Thank you very much for doing this, and probably a number of you have been to the other candidates' nights as well. So this is great that everyone's so interested and involved in what's happening in our community. I'm just going to give a little bit of housekeeping things. One is if you do have your cell phone on, please turn it off. Thank you very much. Another thing is if you do need a washroom, it's just right out the door to the right and on your left. if you need to do something during the meeting, unfortunately we don't have a break scheduled, so just be quiet and don't trip on anything on your way out. Because we have so many candidates and only so many hours of the day, we're going to try to move things along quite quickly. We have given the candidates copies of all of the questions that we're going to be going over, so hopefully they will have had a chance to think about it a little bit beforehand, and we can move on promptly from one to the other. I would also like to notice before we get much further that we are in an amazing building here at Okanagan College. This is an extremely green building here. It's won many awards, and thanks to everyone who's staying over time to make this happen. It's a wonderful location, thank you. Also a big shout out to Peach City Radio, which is in the back. They have also been there's a volunteer community organization, if you're not familiar with it. It's at CFUZ.ca, and this will be recorded, I believe, and that people can get this later on if they need to do that. So anyone out there listening in Radio Land, welcome. We're glad you're there, and thank you, Peach City Radio, for being here and making this possible. I'm just going to say a few words about how we're going to proceed tonight. And the idea is we're trying to get everyone to be able to answer at least 4 questions. The first question will be the same for everyone. And then the last question will be the same for everyone. But in the middle there will be 2 questions that will be picked from a pool of about 7. So you'll hear several answers to the same question, but it's been randomly assigned as to who's going to get which question, just to mix it up a little bit. The first question will be have 2 minutes for the candidate to introduce themselves and to say a bit about how they see the City Council responding to the climate emergency. The last question will be a chance for them to wrap up and talk about what new directions they would like to see things going in. And the 2 questions in the middle will be just a 1-minute answer, so pretty quick, and we'll move the mic along. Thanks to everyone for quickly moving the mic from one person to the next. We're going to mostly be handing it just right to the next person in line, so it shouldn't be too difficult, and then we have someone who will help move the mic when that's necessary. When you're coming to the end of your very short period of time we have allotted, 30 seconds before it's due to expire, there will be a bell. Ta-da. When time is up, again, 2 dings. Okay, so at that point, if you kindly pass the mic to the person who's answering next, that would be very much appreciated. And we'll get out of here in a nice, timely manner. Just so that everyone knows, the speaking order here was all sort of randomly selected, but again, people did get copies of the questions beforehand, so hopefully it will work well. We are grouping the answers from the mayor's candidates together, and then the council as well. So and one more thing, we are able to stay here as late as 9:30. Hopefully we will be done before then. We're aiming for a 9 o'clock end. However, we don't have to be out here at immediately, so if people want to stay, ask questions, talk to each other at that point, that's the time to do it. Obviously, at this pace, we aren't going to have a chance to take questions from the floor to have candidates engage back and forth, so we apologize for that, but there will be some time at the end. So that said, I think we're able to go ahead and get started. So we're going to start off with the first question to the mayoral candidates who are all seated over there on your left side. And the random order that we have them there is, we're just going to run down in the order that they're seated. So the first question again is, please introduce yourself and share what role you see Penticton City Council playing in addressing climate change. So, first person is Julius Bloom. I'm so sorry. Bloomfield. Yes. Sorry, Julius. Go ahead. Start.
Hi. My name is Julius Bloomfield, and I'm running for the position of Mayor of Penticton. Many of you might know me from my first forays into politics, where I ran for the Green Party back in 2009, and quickly realized that there's a better opportunity to make a difference at the municipal level, and so I switched my attentions to municipal politics. In the past 4 years, I've been a councillor with the city, And as the Council Liaison on the Sustainability Committee, I've been responsible for a number of environmentally related motions. I started off by initiating the revival of the Sustainability Committee, instigated the installation of high-speed EV charging stations in the city. I've consistently voted to protect farmland and natural landscapes. I brought about the inclusion of our beaches as a natural asset in our asset management plan. I initiated a review of all potential independent power production applications in the city. I was very happy to take the recommendations from the Sustainability Committee and have the City Council declare a climate emergency. I believe Penticton can play a role as a leader in the demands related to climate change by upgrading city buildings to be more energy efficient, by electrifying our fleet of small vehicles, and by adopting Step 4 in our building code before the 2027 deadline. We need Penticton to be a livable city with ample walkways and multi-use streets to enable residents safer access in whatever form of transportation they choose. We need a city where we have first-class recreational facilities and plenty of green space throughout the city. That time?
Thank you so much. If you want to just pass the mic, and this is John Vasilaki. Same question. Introduce yourself and give your vision.
Thank you very much. I'm Mayor John Vasilaki for the City of Penticton. I've lived in Penticton for 66 years. I built a lot of the downtown area, improved many other areas in the community. And I can tell you that most of my buildings that I built personally do not use fossil fuels. We use ductless heating systems, which are electric, and we only use electrical heating and air conditioning, not fossil fuels that I said. And I'm always conscious of the health of our community, fresh air, and all the other good things that go along to living properly in our community. Now, City Council endorsed the Penticton Community Action Plan back in November 16th of 21, putting us on track to reduce our emissions by about 40% by 2030. To meet our climate goals, we have to work together to address three main sources of emissions, and that's transportation, buildings, and waste. And I believe if we can start working on these three main goals, we can get the work done. You know, climate change is caused by humans, and only humans can correct it. So those are the steps that we have to take in order for us to defeat climate change and get back to normality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next candidate is Jason Rainin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Rainin. I am looking to secure a spot on the council as mayor. I was born and raised in Penticton. I'm a devoted husband and father of three. I own and operate a couple businesses in Penticton, both Muffler and Beach City CrossFit. I'm an extremely passionate individual who loves business. I love spending time with my family. I love spending time in this beautiful community, mountain biking, snowboarding, and all the other great outdoor activities that we have here. I'm going to lean into the question a little bit now, but greening Penticton is a top priority. We all have, a huge part to play when it comes to climate change, including reducing emissions. Penticton continues year after year to be affected by wildfires. With our kids year in and year out, breathing that air is toxic to all of us. We are on the front lines of our climate change. And further greening of Penticton is not an option, but rather a necessity. Why? Because greening will provide more significant results than anything else in terms of sequestering carbon, providing clean air, and controlling the temperature and humidity. In a place like Penticton, we are facing droughts, forest fires, excessive heat, flooding, and greening is a critical step towards a secure future in Penticton. Thank you.
Thank you. The next candidate is Owen Hayward.
Good evening. My name is Owen Hayward. I'm a Penticton homeowner for 12 years. I'm a father of 3, married father of 3. I have 3 young adult children who've established careers in trades, nursing, and tourism. My son is a graduate of this facility. He's going to hopefully be a Red Seal electrician in the not too distant future. I want to talk about the role of municipal government in that it is to use the tax dollars wisely to maximize the quality of life for the people who live in a given community. The majority of Penticton people in Penticton are doing a great job, but feeling the strains of life in 2022. The people are our firefighters, police, volunteers, nonprofits, frontline workers, small business, developers, builders, seniors, young families, etc. I'm one of the people. I'm a trade school graduate myself. I'm a university graduate, and I have a postgraduate certificate for teaching. I've been a blue-collar worker, a white-collar worker. I've been a worker, a supervisor, a boss, a manager, and my most recent career that I'm retired from was making ice in the curling industry. Sustainability and the environment are a big part of my modus operandi. We've converted our house to entire heat pump, and we have a hybrid vehicle in the family. I'm a notorious CBC listener, and I do know the more aggressively we incorporate the climate considerations, it's a financially prudent way to go. And that's a theme of my whole campaign is financial prudence. I believe I heard for every $1 we invest now, we would save 40 in the future.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So those were all mayoral candidates. The following folks are all looking for a seat on the council. And the first one answering the same question, which is, please introduce yourself and share what role you see Penticton City Council playing in addressing climate change. So we'll start off with Lindsay Hall.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lindsay Hall. Many of you may have heard that I was an Army officer to fulfill my education, and then I was subsequently a radar technician for North American Air Defense. But first and foremost, I'm a mechanical engineer. And I can bore you to tears with what I've done for climate protection and efficiencies over the years. And when we reflect on this, what the city can do is, we designed control systems when I was with Johnson Controls that put every building for the city of Winnipeg under one control at City Hall. Little room downstairs in City Hall. And that kept the efficiency of all the operations of all the buildings under control right from one central location. When I ran for council in 2008, when Mrs. Slump also ran, I lobbied that the Munson Mountain lands should be used for community gardens and a tree bank. We had lost a lot of trees in the windstorm that happened in autumn of 2007. I also unveiled my plan that we should be tapping into the power Mother Nature gave us in the Greyback Dam and producing hydroelectricity as a run-of-river hydroelectric system here for our city. It should be done by us and for us to reduce our electric rates in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next candidate is James Miller.
Hi, I'm Councillor James Miller, first elected in June of last year. A critical issue in the 2021 by-election was a major development on the David Campy property. I was one of two candidates, Karen Brownlee the other, who voiced concerns about the environmental impact of the Oxbow, as well as a lack of consultation with the Penticton Indian Band. The previous vote on that issue was a 3-3 draw, and it was obvious whoever got elected would be casting the deciding vote. So what was the end result? A Miller landslide and more reasonable proposal which came before council and was endorsed unanimously. Katie Robinson and I are the only councillors who presently voted to halt development at 1050 Spiller Road, again due to environmental concerns and disregard for our First Nation friends. Last night, the home builders and realtors held a forum, and I wasn't the most popular guy in the room, but one project that I did support, even with some neighborhood opposition, was an affordable complex on Main Street in the downtown, which was valuable and walkable for many residents. I also applaud the council of the day for their support of the rise on Nanaimo. I'm the only candidate, to the best of my knowledge, who participated in Go By Bike Week this past spring, all 7 days. Tonight I walked to the college, a nice 20-minute brisk walk from my home, and for 3 years I lived on Backstreet Boulevard and was able to walk. I am nonpartisan, but I received support in the last election from the 4 major political parties, members of them, and Ted and Katie Schumacher, the Green Party candidate, great guy. Take a bike ride by their house and you'll see a little blue sign on his yard. And what does it say? It's Miller time.
Thank you very much. Looks like I'm, okay. The next person is Nicholas Kruger.
Hello. Whoa. Hello, I just wanted to thank you for acknowledging that you're on the unceded territory of the Silks Nation. I'm the first member of the Silks Nation to run for council here. My name is Nicholas Kruger in Chai Squeeze Chillicks. One of the things that I have to offer, whether I make it or not, I'm hoping that I'll be able to work with the council, because when it comes to environment, it's super important to me. One of my biggest teachers in life was my grandmother, the late Annie Kruger. They've written books that they have in this college. She was a firekeeper, one of the oldest forms of field modification in the entire Okanagan Nation. It goes back thousands and thousands of years, and it reduces the amount of fuel in the ground, promotes new growth, and infuses the ground with nitrate. And it's one of the ways that we've always kept this place forest fire free. And not only that, she was the biggest advocate in the entire nation for when it come to water, clean water. She would write 1 letter a day, whether she was writing it to local governments, whether she was writing it to the municipality, or whether she was writing it to Ottawa. She would write 1 letter a day, and she fought her whole life for the cleanliness of water. We would go and we would pray at the water and to the water, because it was, she said, it's the most important thing in this world. Every living thing on earth needs water. And so I'm going to try and bring that passion for the environment through my grandma's teachings. And thank you all.
Thank you very much. The next person is Ryan Graham.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Graham. I want to first and foremost thank First Things First Okanagan College, but specifically a shout out to Peach City Radio. This crew has been with all of us the last few days, and I want to just give them a shout out for all their efforts, giving a bigger platform for what's being said at these forums. A quick spiel about myself. I was raised here in Penticton. I moved here in 1988. I was fortunate enough to go to school here in the district from kindergarten to grade 12. I graduated in 2004 at Princess Margaret. I was elected the first class historian by my peers. More importantly, I'm a father of 2 boys, Dominic, who's 20 and a chef, and my other son, Jensen, who's 10, that now goes to the same elementary school at Columbia that I went to from kindergarten to grade 7. My wife Andrea and me have been together for 15 years. She's a hero. She's a frontline worker within this community, dealing with the community's most marginalized community members with respects to shelters, addiction, homelessness, and mental health. I'm the most current past president of the DPA. I'm a small business owner in Penticton, and I'm very excited for the opportunity to speak with all of you tonight, but more importantly, to learn what I see as a role with Penticton City Council addressing climate change. I want to learn. I'm not going to stand up here tonight and tell you I know everything, because I do not, but I think this is a great opportunity to have some dialogue and for me to leave learning a lot more. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we have Katie Robinson.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and candidates. Well, that got your attention. My name is Katie Robinson, and it must be my personality. The magnetic personality is working in overtime tonight. I hope you remember my name on October 15th. I am looking for re-election. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an experienced businesswoman with a financial and management background. I moved to Penticton in 1985 to take on a job as a financial planner with Investors Group for approximately 5 years until I got into politics. I've had the privilege of representing Penticton for a little over 14 years now with integrity, dedication, and commitment. I've also served as a director on the RDOS for 9 years and a trustee on the Regional Hospital Board for just over 6 years. I have walked the talk, and I have a proven record of sound decision-making. About a year ago, Penticton unveiled our community climate action plan, and this outlines a path towards a low-carbon future for our city. It's imperative that all levels of government, especially local ones, commit to a change for the future. I like to say, think globally and act locally. Just as a sidebar here, I believe the city is leading the way in electric vehicles. I'm sure you see them all over the city, and just recently we've actually added a Zamboni to the electric family. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Helena Conans.
Hi, everyone. I'm Helena Conans. I know a lot of you out there, so thanks so much for coming this evening. I've lived and owned a small business here in Penticton with my family for the last nearly 30 years. I have a master's from UBC Okanagan that I received in 2018, where I studied housing affordability. And I'm a professional tennis and business coach. I also want to mention that I'm a mom of 2 kids, Zachary and Zoe's in the audience right here. And she's going to UBC right now. She's in her last semester for environmental studies. So this is the future of our young people that are going to be addressing the crisis of climate change right here. So thank you, Zoe, and we're really proud of her. I was on, I'm a former city councilor. I was a city councilor from 2011 to 2018. Some of you remember me doing that. And I also ran for member of parliament in 2019 and 2021. I'm no expert on this subject, but it's obvious we need to do something more than we're doing right now. As a city, we have to make sure that we don't contribute to the problem and we actually act on it. We need to be responsible for how we use our resources. We need to partner with organizations like you and look at forward-looking communities. We can do simple things like I want to ban plastic water bottles from all public facilities in Penticton and put in water filling stations. So simple but direct action towards climate change. And that will be a motion that I will be bringing forward at council when if you choose to elect me to council. Thank you again, and look forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you very much. And now we have Campbell Watt.
Thank you. I'll start by taking the opportunity to thank all of you for taking time out of your day to come and hear from us, and the opportunity is much appreciated. My name is Campbell Watt. I'm running for council. I have done 2 terms. I'm looking for a third. I have a 11-year-old daughter who's wishes she could be here. It's a little too late for her because she's very trying to be environmentally sensitive, and quite frankly, I'm really happy that the schools offer the programs that they do. The role we play is frankly leadership, and probably one of the most important tools that we have as a council is to dictate the roads that we take. We have now added to our fleet, including e-bikes. And I think it's important that these little steps, although they're baby steps, are at least steps in the right direction, and we can make sure that what happens moving forward is bigger steps. And I really hope that we get a chance to do that. So thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Larry Schwarzenberger.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Larry Schwarzenberger. My wife, Claire, and I moved to the Okanagan 32 years ago, now residing in Penticton for the last 2.5 years. We have 3 grown children and 7 wonderful grandchildren. I was honored to be elected to the Town of Oliver Council in 2013 as a councillor and have been re-elected twice since then. I'm an honorary life member of the Knights of Columbus, a member of the Royal Canadian Legion, and I better read this because I didn't get it right last night. I'm on the Community Advisory Board for the Okanagan Correctional Centre. With regards to the question, Council has an important role in fighting climate change by following the city's Climate Action Plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in city-owned buildings, vehicles, and waste facilities, and by providing education, regulation, and possibly incentives for the citizens and businesses of the community to reduce their own emissions. I look forward to the questions later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next candidate is Katie O'Kell.
Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Katie O'Kell, and I'm honored to be running for City Council. I also want to make a quick note that I have allergies today, so if you see me sniffling, don't be worried. Like many of you here, I'm really concerned about our future. I'm a biologist, a winemaker. It must be a Katie thing. I'm a biologist, a winemaker, and someone who's really passionate about Penticton. I proudly volunteer on the boards of SOWINS and the Seniors Wellness Society. I'm also an avid houseplant addict, a farmer, a critic of grass lawns, and a terrible gardener, although I did manage to grow 3 varieties of squash this year, so baby steps. As a biologist, I've seen the signs of climate change for the last 10 years. This is something I studied in school extensively. As humans on this planet, we all need to focus on decarbonization, reducing greenhouse emissions, and supporting our rapidly declining biodiversity. In my opinion, every single person needs to take steps to reduce their environmental impact, and it's the role of our government at all levels to take the large steps to mitigate the disastrous impacts we've had on our planet. As our city, it's our duty to act as leaders. We need to make the hard decisions now to prevent further climate crisis. We need to be changing how we build buildings to reduce emissions. We need to be changing our cityscape to improve walkability. We need to be encouraging more plants, more trees, more home gardens, mine maybe not so much, implementing a gray water system in new developments, and protecting our surviving forests at all costs. We need intentional, deliberate, and intelligent strategies moving forward. Simple, intelligent steps can go a long way. Encouraging density downtown to solve our housing crisis instead of encouraging urban sprawl will go a long way to reducing our ecological impact. Working with Summerland and Kelowna to create an intercity public bus system will reduce how many people get in their cars to make that trip. We need to cut the red tape from the city to make solar panels make sense for everyone. On October 15th, I would really appreciate your vote of confidence. On October 15th, please vote Katie O'Kell. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next candidate is Frank Regier.
Good evening. Certainly pleased to be here tonight and just have all this involvement with the community. So I've been on City Council for one term. My background is financial. I obtained an accounting degree at the beginning of my career and have worked in the last 35 years in 2 different municipalities and 3 school districts, and the last one being about 22 years in School District 67 here in Penticton. So functioned there as a financial manager, secretary treasurer with the school district. I have 5 children and 8 grandchildren actually, and they are just the joy of my life. And I think as far as thinking of global warming and all of the environmental situation, that's for our children and grandchildren, I think is just an absolute important goal. Certainly within the environmental issue, vehicles is by far the biggest polluter for a city. We have done some issues of support with our own vehicles at the city yards, and including, as mentioned here, bikes for our bylaw crew for their rounds. So that's a couple of small things, but also setting up like the EV stations around the city and trying to create opportunities for people to reduce their pollution. We'll be doing a number of building reviews as a school district, as the city, and from there be able to do a lot of energy savings with either new buildings that we'll be looking at, and that could be something like an arena, and also total renovation of City Hall. Those provide great opportunities. They're work that just needs to be done anyway, and so just very, very fortunate for our city to be able to gain reductions in pollution that way. Thank you.
And thank you. Now we will hear from Isaac Gilbert.
Thank you everyone for being here today. My name is Isaac Gilbert, and I'm pretty sure I'm the only candidate here that not only bikes to work on Bike to Work Week, but every day out of the year I bike to work and back. Also too, I'm a BC Park Ranger, and as a BC Park Ranger, I am right in the middle of seeing what climate change does to our environment. As one of my jobs, I go out and monitor a lot of the ecological systems that we have out there and our rare species and species at risk. And we see that effect. But I think everyone here, because it's a municipal election, not a provincial one, and we're not looking at provincial parks, we're looking at our city. And we see that from last year when we saw the city of Lytton devastated and basically razed to the ground by wildfire. We saw Princeton flooded. We saw highways taken out by rivers. We need to be resilient, and a city can do that by how we design our city, by ensuring that when we design, we make that resiliency to that people can do active transportation, that we bolster public transportation so we're reducing our emissions, that when we look at housing, we look at new technology that isn't in the oil and gas sector. You know, the new oil and gas right now is this renewable natural gas that they're putting out there, when at the end of the day, you're still burning fossil fuels and you're still burning and putting CO2 in the environment. We need to be looking at geothermal for our housing. We need to be looking at heat pumps. We need to be looking at solar panels, and we need to be able to promote that in the house as well, in our homes, to ensure that we're bringing those emissions down. Really, we got to look at bringing our consumption down, and cities play that vital role. If we look at the Netherlands, they're way ahead because they have made it that their transportation emissions are down low, and they do have some densification that allows buildings to be more efficient when it comes to heating and cooling their house. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with our final candidate for council is Andrew Jacobite.
Hi there, Andrew Jacobite, perhaps a familiar name or her face. I was on council for 10 years, 2008 to 2018, 4 years being the mayor. I'm a business owner at the Groove Yards, a record store for 32 years downtown, and a video production company. Lived here for probably 31 years, been involved with the community for 29 of those years. First with minor hockey. I'm still on the board of directors of the provincial board of minor hockey. BC Hockey. I was the downtown Penticton president, championing for the start of the community market and 1 hour free parking. and for the last 4 years on the board of directors with the South Okanagan Immigrant Community Services, and they organize a Real Peach Fest Film Festival and the Canucks Youngster Classic. And my motto is basically experience leadership to rebuild a safe and vibrant Penticton. And I like to say I've seen the good and the bad and the ugly, but also had 4 years to think about what worked, what didn't work, or what I could have done better, or could bring back to a council. I've been so lucky. In terms of climate change, the city owns its own electrical utility, so it has flexibility to really explore more with solar energy or a solar garden project, what Nelson is doing. I think we need to be more aggressive with a tree mandate to add trees in our boulevards, not only to help capture or reduce emissions, but add some shade and also beautify neighborhoods. I think we need to be offering more incentives or grants for homeowners to convert to solar or other energy efficiencies or xeriscaping. And the grant's certainly not to pay for everything, but to help with that investment. And lastly, I think any new civic buildings have to be modeled after what we're here, this living and sustainable building. Thank you.
All right, thanks to everyone. That was a great start. We're going to move on to mixing things up a little bit with our next questions. We're going to start off, however, back with the mayors. And we'll do the mayors first, and then we will move down to the councillors. And Laurie, I will tell you where to take the microphone next. So but we're going to mix it up with the mayors a little bit. So actually the first mayor that is going to be answering the question is, or the first mayoral candidate is John Vasilaki. So if you want to just pass the mic there, that would be great. And, the mayors will all be getting the same question, whereas the councillors will be getting more of a mix-up. So mayors here, or mayor candidates, your question will be, climate change is adding to Penticton's vulnerability to droughts, forest fires, excessive heat, and flooding. What actions would you propose to address these threats? And there is 1 minute for this response.
Okay, thank you very much. I am not going to throw any technical information your way. I don't think that's what we're here for. My answers are common sense type questions, just the same way I vote at City Hall. I use my common sense in order to make sure things get done properly. First of all, fire smart your property. We must take action to lower our carbon footprint. We must make sure we have plenty of trees and developed properties and properties to be developed. We must make sure that through our fire department, we can clear dry undergrowth and forest surroundings in our community. By preventing forest fires, our forests can cut down on heat, and the growth in the forest can prevent flooding, slides, and all the other things that can happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If you could pass the mic to Julius Bloomfield. It's the same question about how what actions would be proposed to address these various climate threats.
So we need to build resiliency within the city. We need to protect our farmland. Vineyards are great, but one day food will be more valuable, and so we must maintain the integrity of the soil. We need to protect our natural water courses, because without clean water, we'll have nothing. As the old saying goes, no water equals no land. We need to have added fire protection code items in houses built in interface areas, such as exterior roof sprinklers and requirements for exterior building materials. We need a vigorous fire smart program to protect the natural areas that interface with residential areas, and we need to have a rising rate of water for residential use above the normal levels for an average home to restrict the overconsumption of water for decorative landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you. The next answer will be Owen Hayward.
Thank you. I'll refer back to some of my opening remarks, and the reason I talked about the role of municipal government is I think we all know throughout our lifetimes we've seen the federal government dump responsibilities, both fiscal and other, onto the province, who have in turn dumped them onto municipal governments. And that's why I feel in 2022, municipal governments are more important than they ever have been. Regarding the question, we ended up here through a series of unintended consequences. Human behavior is based, influenced greatest by incentives. That's part of my rationale for everything I do: education, initiatives, and incentives. So my stance, should I become your mayor, is to aggressively and maximally include environmental impact as a primary consideration factor in all city-controlled endeavors and infrastructures. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to mix the questions up a little bit. If you could move the microphone down to Helena Conance. Oh no, so sorry. I apologize. Jason Rainin. I am so sorry. Jason Rainin. And this
totally
is the
okay.
Same question.
I'm a learner in this as well, so definitely not. What I have learned, guys, is been in a very short amount of time, so I'm going to try to relay as much as I can, as best I can. First, I would establish a comprehensive and rigid tree policy, which would include sustainable harvesting. Maybe possibly hire an arborist familiar with our municipal planning to review and designate replanting of old trees. The city will plant where possible and encourage homeowners to plant on their properties. This includes fruit trees that could possibly contribute to food sustainability. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, apologies for that. And so we're going to start with Helena Conance. And your question is going to be a different one. This says, what specific actions do you think the City of Penticton should take to ensure our new and existing buildings and homes are more sustainable? For example, so they can conserve water, energy, or protect the natural habitat. Thanks.
Thanks. Helena Conans again, and great question. Right now we have the BC step code for any new build, which is great. And the requirements for that are going to increase every year. So I believe the city is really on the mark there for new builds. But Penticton really has mostly older stock, and that's what really we have to worry about. We have the home energy loan program, but I think that needs to be enhanced. We have a lot of lower income people that can't afford to heat their homes. And so we need to enhance that home energy loan program so that they are able to afford their electricity, afford to heat their homes. And also we're able to address climate change, the same thing. But it's the older stock I think we really need to focus on, the older housing stock.
We're going to switch the mics out here and see if it works a little bit better. So, we're going to see if this works a little bit better and we don't get quite as much of that blowing sound. So we'll see how this works. So for Campbell Watt, we have actually the same question that the mayor's had. So this one is about the climate change and the vulnerability that Penticton has to droughts, forest fires, excessive heat, and flooding. And what actions would you propose to address these threats?
Thank you. This is about resiliency, and the city has invested in this area. If re-elected, not any better. If re-elected, I will continue to invest in this area. Just as an example, since I've been on council, we have added an emergency program coordinator, a sustainability manager, a fire smart coordinator, and added emergency ops training to mitigate these threats. We are also supporting the creek restoration outlined in the master plan, all to move forward with sustainability and resiliency. Thank you.
I'm not sure we cured everything by switching the mics, but we'll carry on as best we can here. Thank you. The next candidate to respond will be Larry Schwarzenberger, and the question we have for you is, what ideas do you have to create a more livable community that is walkable, inclusive, community-oriented, resilient, and enhanced with safe public space?
Thank you for the question. I believe Penticton has done an admirable job in creating active transportation through walking trails, hike and bike trails, and a network of safe and accessible sidewalks with drop-downs that cater to people with mobility issues. The 5 hubs for higher density within the city, areas around the 3 malls, downtown, and the Northern Gateway, have been identified as areas that can accept higher density as they are close to parks, schools, and shopping. This will enable residents to walk or bike to access these amenities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll move on to Katie O'Kell. The question we have for you is about trees. They provide an essential ecological service. They provide flood control, cleaning and cooling the air, and producing oxygen, just to name a few. What will you do to protect our existing canopy and increase it as quickly as possible? And how would you encourage builders to leave mature trees in place?
I am so glad you asked me this question. I was joking with the other candidates in my answer. I have essentially an ode to trees that I will not damage your poor ears with. But I love trees. Trees have this phenomenal ability to not only hold in our soil, but they can actually change the temperature of the air around them. They can mitigate the humidity, and they are a huge portion of our resilience. They're also a massive carbon sink, and we need to protect them however we can. One of the big things I have advocated for during the by-election and before is maintaining our current forests. I don't want to chop down trees to build more housing. I want to densify Penticton. The other thing, drawing from my hometown of Toronto, which mandates a tree be on every single person's property in the city. It creates this beautiful aerial canopy of the city, but it also encourages trees everywhere, which means it's more walkable, it's not as hot, you've got better moisture, and it's something our city could very easily do. Who doesn't want a tree in their front yard? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, and we're just moving on down. So the next candidate is Frank Regier. And the question we have for you is, this one will sound familiar. What specific actions do you think the City of Penticton should take to ensure our new and existing buildings and homes are more sustainable? So, for example, conserving water, energy, and protecting the natural habitat.
Thank you for the question. I said a little bit in the opening comments how the city is moving forward with looking at 4 buildings in particular towards replacement, and that or total renovation. And total renovation is for City Hall, but replacement would be for 2 arenas and possibly replacing them with a twin arena, and also for an arts culture facility, and looking possibly, and this is a suggestion from a report we had, so it's not a decision, but library and the museum and the arts and culture areas for another building. If we move ahead with those types of projects, we will be building them to current best practice standards for energy efficiency and environmental just enhancement. So we have a great start at that, but these are older buildings that are in just the time for potential replacement. So I see that being a good opportunity. With housing as well, if we can get support, particularly with some grants, with housing, it's so expensive, I think, for the conversion. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving along to Isaac Gilbert, the question that we have for you is, in Kelowna, some subdivisions are being built using geothermal systems. Some BC municipalities are restricting fossil fuels in new buildings and subdivisions to lower community emissions. How can Penticton lower emissions from buildings?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think hearing that, I was really glad that the First Things First Okanagan had their Green Expo last weekend on Saturday, because I got to speak to someone there about geothermal. And for me, I didn't know we could put geothermal here in Penticton just by our design and how we have our city sits. But they said to me, yes, we can do that. And I think it is that our city needs to push those initiatives to be able to put geothermal in, because it is a very passive and very low intensity of emissions being emitted. And I think we do need to start restricting what fossil fuels are being burnt in our city as well. Like I said before, we need to bring down our consumption if we're going to meet our targets and to be able to get a handle on climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. And for candidate Andrew Jacobite, we have the tree question. The same one that you recently heard, that trees provide essential ecological services. How can we protect our existing canopy, increase it, and encourage builders to leave mature trees in place?
Thank you. Well, I like the fact that the city started putting trees along boulevards. I mentioned that earlier. I'd like to see that program expanded. I would like to see the city offering opportunities for residents maybe to participate in some sort of bulk buy at the beginning of every season to get trees at or near wholesale, or some sort of other incentive to really have trees, people put a tree in every yard type of thing. Where's my other points here? I think while they're doing that, hopefully also think about xeriscaping their yard, so getting rid of some of their grass and other water hogs. Sometimes with development, to have a mature tree, work around a mature tree is difficult. So I think having any tree that gets removed, replaced by two to three model, and also or put in kind of like we have for parking, a cash in lieu. So they would have to put money in towards a tree fund that gets put in a community tree somewhere else as well. So thank you.
So we're going to go back up to Lindsay Hall and work our way back down. So the next candidate was Lindsay Hall, and the question that we have for you is the question that we recently, this will sound familiar, but in Kelowna there's examples of some subdivisions being built using geothermal systems. Some BC municipalities are restricting fossil fuels in new buildings and subdivisions to lower emissions. So how can Penticton lower emissions from buildings?
Well, geothermal is overrated. We've had geothermal buildings built in the city. I think it's called Allison Place, or one of the buildings there. And the geothermal system failed, right? You know what works better? If we focus on the individual homes in the city. Close to 20 years ago, my home in Redlands, in Redlands, I installed a high-efficiency heat pump instead of another air conditioner. Can anyone guess how much I cut my energy consumption in that house? Immediately, 40%. So by encouraging the replacement of air conditioners as they die with heat pumps, we encourage people to reduce their consumption of electricity right there and then. Now we have to also make electricity more appealing than natural gas. And as I've pointed out to people, I've found that over the past 20 years, we are being charged too much for electricity. You let me into the conversion yards and I'll show you how they're doing it. $23 million surplus in the electric utility this past spring proves that I was right. Thank you.
Thank you. So for candidate James Miller, the question we have is, once again, trees. The trees perform essential services for us, and what can we do to protect our canopy, to expand it, and to encourage builders to leave mature trees?
Thank you. The city does have a policy on mature trees, which I certainly support, and I fully agree. Trees are great, and trees are our friends. I think it starts at the provincial government level. While I applaud the Horgan NDP government for many files that they've done successfully, I disagreed with their position on old growth forests, and that again is a black eye today in the news to British Columbia, around the globe. But the second part of the question includes the word encourage, and that's what we absolutely have to do. Katie O'Kell had said the Toronto model. That is awesome. I would love to see that here in British Columbia, a tree on every front lawn. And so the key word is encourage. I'm not sure if dictate would be the right thing to do, but as I said, trees are our friends, and I'd love to see them. Thank you.
Thank you. And for candidate Nicholas Kruger, the question we have for you has to do with what specific actions you think the City of Penticton should take to ensure our new and existing buildings and homes are more sustainable. For example, how they can conserve water, energy, and protect the natural habitat.
Obviously, I think that in order for our houses and buildings to be more sustainable, we have to look at, you're talking about energy efficiency, right? Sorry. Yeah.
Yes? Hello? Yes. So we want to know what action we think the City of Penticton should take to ensure that our new and existing buildings and homes are more sustainable.
Okay. Like, I take it as more energy efficient and whatnot. So, all right, yeah, I think that we have to look at some of the other techniques that are being used, like passive housing techniques that are used in modifying and making the buildings more energy efficient. And doesn't just go with the buildings; it comes with the surrounding of the buildings, with trees and shading, with deciduous trees and whatnot as well, that create a better shade in one type of the season and better heat in the other. So I think there's a lot of techniques that we can use when it comes to those types of housings. Thanks.
Thank you. And for Ryan Graham, we actually have the same question, which is what actions you think the City of Penticton should take to ensure new and existing buildings and homes are more sustainable. Examples would be conserving water, energy, and protecting the habitat.
Yeah, last night we had the Canadian Home Builders Association forum. Out of that forum this morning and this afternoon, I sat with some developers and builders in our community, specifically to the questions here tonight. They get it, they understand it, and it's time to move forward. What I would like to see is city staff and the next council mayor give initiatives to spearhead these initiatives. We need to conserve our water and we need to protect our natural habitat. That goes without saying. So what I'm going to take tonight after we move forward and I learn more things is we need to get our developers and our builders in a room with all of you. We need to collaborate on this. Many hands make light work.
Thank you. And moving on to Katie Robinson, the question for you has to do with looking at the examples in Kelowna where some subdivisions are using geothermal, some BC municipalities restricting fossil fuels in new buildings and subdivisions, and what can Penticton do to lower emissions from buildings?
Thank you for the question. In our new Community Climate Action Plan that I mentioned earlier, we're looking at multiple ways to lower emissions from buildings. First, we need to step up new buildings by enhancing the energy efficiency and using low-carbon heating. By following the BC Energy Step Code and using incentives that target zero emissions heating and cooling systems. Secondly, we need to decarbonize existing buildings by supporting deep energy retrofits and fuel switching. For more information, I hope that you all get a chance to read the new Community Climate Action Plan because all the answers are right there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are at the point, we already had you answer question number 2. We're now going to move to question number 3. So this is, you had the question about what the actions that the City of Penticton should take. Yeah. So we're going to mix it up a little bit here, and we're going to go back to the mayors and ask them question 3, and then we will return and have the councillors answer their questions. It's a little confusing, so sorry about that. So going back to the mayors are all getting the same question here, and we're starting off with Jason Rennan. We won't forget you this time. So the question that we have is the one that actually with the last person answered as well. So all the mayoral candidates will be answering this question. In Kelowna, some subdivisions are built using geothermal systems, and some BC municipalities are restricting fossil fuels in new buildings and subdivisions to lower community emissions. And how can Penticton lower emissions from buildings? Thanks.
Hi, thank you for the question. Kind of runs down the line with a lot of what everyone has been saying. We need to ensure that all builds are considering the use of geothermal if it allows it, if it's a proper area for it. My father actually did that exact thing up on Carmi Hill, ran a geothermal build. Consult with subject matters experts regarding the renovation of existing public structures and facilities and incorporate some of the same sustainable technology. It'll take some time for this conversation, but it'll be necessary to step into a sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you. If you would pass the microphone to Owen Hayward. It's the same question, which has to do with how can the city of Penticton make sure that new and existing buildings and homes are more sustainable?
Well, we're going to get a lot of common answers on this. I'm going to get a little repetitious. So the city controls zoning, bylaws, rules for developers and builders. So the simple, easy solution is initiatives and incentives for our builders and developers to meet or exceed the climate action plan as they build new projects. I'll briefly divert to the trees. Huge. The tree factor seems very simple, but it is a very important factor as we go into the effects of climate change, some of the heat events that we've been seeing. So I'm all for incentives to get everybody's yards filled with trees. We have to do the research, pick the right types that aren't absorbing too much water but are providing valuable shade, which helps lessen your air conditioning. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could pass the mic now to Julius Bloomfield. Same question about how to steps to take to make sure that the buildings and homes are more sustainable.
Hi. So, steps to make housing more sustainable. I think we really need to aggressively go to the Step 4 code on the building code. That's due to be implemented by 2027 and Step 5 in 2032. This city has won kudos in the past for implementing Step 3 at a faster pace, and I think that we can do that with Step 4. If we implemented Step 4 by, say, 2024, Step 5, which is really a net zero house system, by the end of this decade, then I think that's the really positive way to go. Continue with the HELP program for home renovations and immediately start a program for upgrading city-owned buildings to give them a high level of energy efficiency. Promote the use of solar power and reduce the restrictions on getting permits approved for solar power installations. That has been a bit of a bugbear with the city, and I'd like to see that change.
Thank you. And now John Vasilaki.
Thank you. We can lower emissions from buildings by implementing efficiency in materials design and using eco-friendly building materials. Also recycling and reducing building components. Also using a low carbon cement that is building materials for the future. It is stronger, more durable, light, and low in emissions. Using geothermal heating, I believe, is a way too expensive for homeowners. Heat pumps or the ductless system of heating and air conditioning, I believe, is more efficient. Not only to cash layout for homeowners, but it'll last a lot longer and less breakdowns when it comes to a long-term run on this efficiencies. And I've got a lot more to say, but no time. Thank you.
Thank you. I was reminded that the candidates had actually gotten the list of these questions, and I'm going to give you the letter to make it a little bit easier to locate the question that I'm referring to. So sorry about that. So this time, actually, we started with Helena Conans and went this way last time, so we're going to start with Katie Robinson and go that way. So you get the last word. So starting with Katie Robinson, this would be question number C. And that is that the City of Penticton has passed the Community Climate Action Plan and the Corporate Energy and Emission Plan. Over 85% of Penticton's community emissions are from transportation and buildings. What kind of initiatives would you like to see Penticton City Council promote to reduce emissions?
Thank you. Well, I believe that it's imperative for municipalities to act now. We're in crisis mode already, and we need to move quickly. Again, thinking globally and acting locally. We all think of manufacturing and vehicle emissions when we think of climate change. So if we stay with that train of thought, then keeping transit flexible, accessible, and readily available will probably reduce the number of cars on the road. Or we could use our brand new bike lanes. In Penticton, we have some charging stations, but we need to use more for electric vehicles. And yes, electric vehicles are expensive, but we're converting people, and that'll take some time, but we'll keep on it. But we have to keep these charging stations at the front of our minds at all times, because technology gets better and better every year, and these vehicles are now charging faster, running longer, and performing better. Thank you.
Thank you. And for Ryan Graham, we have question number F. So that is that the City of Penticton is in a housing crisis. What role should the city play, and how would you work with other levels of government to get new affordable housing built?
I go to bed thinking about the housing crisis, and then I wake up thinking about the housing crisis. We have been to many forums. I firsthand have experienced the lack of housing in our community. I'm not a landowner, I'm not a homeowner, I'm a renter. I rented for 4 years, and the lovely lady we rented from, she sold. Vancouver people came, we were out. I spent 3.5 months living up Apex with my family, commuting because of the lack of shortage. So I understand the fundamental need, not only for affordable housing, but balanced housing. Initiatives. We need to get creative with our initiatives, with our developers, to sit with them and figure out how we make cost-efficient housing. Penticton is very unique. We have 2 beautiful lakes, our neighbors on the Penticton Indian Band, and a mountain. We can't go either way. We need to build up. But furthermore to that, we've got an airport. So we need to figure out what the parameters of the flight and the federal and provincial governments that allow us to build without getting in front of the planes. We need to get creative.
Thank you. And for Nicholas Kruger, we have question E. And question E is about the trees and what we could do to protect our existing canopy, increase it as quickly as possible, and encourage builders to leave mature trees in place.
Well, for me, obviously trees are super important. I'm wearing a 10-tree hoodie tonight, actually. Every time you buy one of these hoodies, they plant 10 trees, so... yeah. And just like Isaac Gilbert, I'm paperless tonight. I've been through every single form. I don't use paper, so I'm very conscious of that. I think that having existing trees stay in place is super important. I think that looking at putting in some new trees is important as well. Like I said, deciduous trees, they provide you shade in the summer, and in the winter the leaves fall off and they allow for more sun and heat to go onto the houses, and so we should need to look at planting more deciduous trees within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. And for James Miller, the question is number G, letter G, and that is, what ideas do you have to create a more livable community that is walkable, inclusive, community-oriented, resilient, and enhanced with safe public space?
Thank you for the question, and thank you, First Things First Okanagan, for the efforts that you put forward in the community and bringing these issues to the forefront. I think Penticton is a very livable community, as already described in the wording of your questions. That's one of the reasons we do have a housing crisis, because people do want to live in the valley. I support development close to the core area. I would love nothing more than to see the Three Gables property developed. I don't necessarily agree with build at all cost philosophy. While we need housing, we need it to be done sensibly. And I don't support the building for the sake of building, but to also help with our environmental footprint. I'm not in favor of twin arenas. We should make Memorial and McLaren work. And if we are to replace the library, I hope we renovate and rebuild on the site, maybe add a second floor, than to create a brand new building.
Thank you. And for Lindsay Hall, we have question B, and that is that climate change is adding to Penticton's vulnerability to droughts, forest fires, excessive heat, and flooding. What actions would you propose to address these threats?
Well, I think we've touched on most of the threat, the proposals as what to do. First, of greenscaping, I touched on in the council race in 2008, 14 years ago, that we should be greenscaping, and here we are addressing it. But finally, alas, let's get on with it, because greenscaping is what moderates the temperature of the environment here. You know, who's gone for a walk in the bush in the afternoon and found it nice and cool, and then come back to town and you're cooking because you're exposed to the radiant heat of the concrete. So greenscaping is a must, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're going to move the microphone back to Andrew Jacobite. And the question for you is question G, and that is, what ideas do you have to create a more livable community that is walkable, inclusive, community-oriented, resilient, with enhanced and safe public space?
Thank you. Well, livable community, public safety is issue number one, but after that is densification around the village nodes is key to create more pathways, whether that's bike or walking, to connect to green spaces and enhance some of the existing trails that are already there. And all those existing trails, I think we need to have more outdoor exercise equipment, or by Lackawanna Park or Gyro Park, a playground, and more shade structures and benches, again, to promote more being walkable. I think if we're going to try to brand ourselves as a festival and event capital, it creates opportunity to come together as a community and celebrate, and there's safety in numbers, and we need that social interaction, and we need to get out more often so we can truly be known as a healthy and active community.
Thank you. And for Isaac Gilbert, we have the same question, number G, which is how to create a more livable community.
Thank you very much. Yeah, what I would really like to see the city to focus on, we talk a lot about housing, and the reason why housing is on here is because that is a basic need that we need. We need shelter over our head. And if we're feeling that we're at a crisis right now, then how are we able to talk about climate change when people are worrying about just having a roof over their heads? And so for me, to make it something livable and affordable, it's about getting back to what we used to have in a lot of our old cities, which are called streetcar suburbs, where you'd be in a city that was a mix of single-family detached homes, duplexes, fourplexes, and apartments, but with commercial services as well. So you can walk, you can see your neighbors, and that trust and that build up a community then comes back. And you're starting to reduce emissions that way as well, because people are living in their city by their own 2 feet. And so for me, what I really want to see is Penticton to focus on ensuring people have housing, especially cooperative and nonprofit housing here in the city of Penticton, so you can have affordable housing for you so that we can take on the challenge of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you. And for Frank Regier, we have question number D, which has comparing ourselves to Kelowna and other BC municipalities that have come up with plans on how to lower community emissions, and how can Penticton lower emissions from buildings.
Yeah, like Kelowna, I mean, that we have the same issues. Restricting fossil fuels is just a basic part of new housing, and trying to work as well with redevelopment of existing properties. The Penticton is already eliminating the use of gas in its renovation of existing city-owned facilities and as well in new buildings. It's difficult to reduce reliance on gas, which is currently much less expensive than electricity for heat and cold in the winter climate. We can look for programs for retrofitting existing houses to higher energy efficient standards, and really by doing a lot of the conversion upgrades, that will help us with reductions of the emissions. Thank you.
Thank you. And for Katie O'Kell, we have question F, and this is City of Penticton is in a housing crisis. What role should the city play, and how would you work with other levels of government to get new affordable housing built?
So rent really has become the new four-letter word, or so it seems around here. I have so many friends that are working 3 jobs and cannot find a place to live. And it is our job as a city to make sure we create more housing. I have said this at the developers event last night to some angry faces, but subdivisions are not the answer. Chopping down our forests to build housing does not make sense. It's not sustainable. Thank you. I stare at the clear cutting above my work every day and see landslides and rock slides, and it just makes me sick. Anyway, rant over. We need to talk about grants. We need to talk about public-private partnerships. We need to talk about literally every single plan that we can come up with to make sure that we get more housing, and we get it now because it is a critical issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for Larry Schwarzenberger, we have a question C, and that is that the City of Penticton has passed our community action plan, and that over 85% of our emissions are from transportation and buildings. And so what initiatives would you like to see the council promote to reduce emissions?
Thank you very much. I feel it is important for municipalities to act on climate change and to educate and encourage their citizens to do the same. There are a wide range of incentives to reduce emissions, such as changing the city's fleet of trucks, buses, and other vehicles to electric vehicles when replaced, and I'm heartened to hear that that is happening. Working to increase the number of EV charging stations for our residents and visitors, and promoting the switchover when HVAC and hot water systems need to be replaced, replacing them with electric. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For Councillor candidate Campbell Watt, the question we have is number F, and that one is again about the housing crisis. What role should the city play, and how should we work with other levels of government to get new affordable housing built?
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Housing is something that the city has an ability to have a direct impact on. Affordable housing on its simplest level can be created by increasing supply. More specifically, when speaking of purpose-built affordable housing, the city can use its land either through a covenant or through a lease, and then partner with a nonprofit and BC Housing as an example to access funds in the community housing grant. Another way is to be creative with zoning and streamlining permitting timelines to help speed up the process of delivering homes to our housing stock, especially for the missing middle. But I don't want to just add to supply. I want that supply to be well thought out, and many of the items that we've talked about today be included in those.
Thank you. And the last word in question 3 goes to Helena Conance, and the question is question B, and that has to do with climate change adding to Penticton's vulnerability to droughts, forest fires, excessive heat, and flooding, and what actions you would propose to address these threats.
Thank you for the question. Adaptation to climate change must happen. There's no doubt that every year we're seeing the results of climate change, so we need to adapt. So, example, drought-resistant plants need to be encouraged, and then possibly we're going to have to not allow grass in well, at least in public buildings, but also in private. We need to, as Nicholas said, work with the Okanagan Nation Alliance and the PIB to culturally control burning and go back to culturally controlled burning, so that we can get back to not have the intensive fires that we've been having in the past few years.
Thank you. Thank you for putting up with our little round robin here, but we are moving on to the last question, and this last question will be the same for everyone. We will start off with the mayors again, and the first person will be Owen Hayward. The question that everyone will be answering, and you have a minute and a half for this, is it's an opportunity to give any closing remarks you'd like to make, and also to share what new directions you would propose to prepare for the climate challenges ahead.
Okay, very quickly, I'll take this opportunity to point out that I am a word-of-mouth candidate only, so I saved a bunch of plastic and a half a tree not having signs. If you like some of the things I said, please spread the word. I'll also point out that I am the only mayoral candidate that lives in Penticton and is not connected to business development or special interest groups, and my goal would be to represent all citizens and all sectors that make up the Penticton community. I'm going to talk quickly about transportation. So one of my platforms, I would secure free bus transportation and access for our seniors, our youth, and our students, and that kills a couple birds with one stone. That's mass transit, and there's a bit of public safety involved there. I'm big on food sustainability and food supply, so one idea I have, what if we created a community cannery facility to think about when and if we have blackouts. Beware of all your frozen peaches. You're going to have to eat them quickly. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for coming out. That does indicate that you do care about our community, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Our second mayoral candidate is Jason Rainan, and same question. Has to do with your chance to give closing remarks and to talk about any new directions that you would propose for climate challenges ahead.
Thank you again. Thanks everyone for coming. This is, I'm learning. I'm doing my best right now to try to gain as much knowledge as I can in a very short amount of time. For me, it's about learning, sitting with all these candidates up here. Every time I sit down, I'm sitting with open ears, as I am with you guys, to try to find some of the best solutions for our community. That's really what it's about. I've lived here my whole life. I plan on living here again. Unfortunately, my kids are important, and I have to, live where I live right now. Doesn't mean I'm not committed. I've been doing everything I can for this community for quite some time, and I will continue to do everything I can, even if I'm not here. So that's really it, guys. I'm here. This is it. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. And then to John Vasilaki, once again, closing remarks and share any new directions that you would propose to prepare for climate challenges ahead.
Thank you very much. I've learned more in the last 9 days with all candidates forums than I have learned for a long, long time. But I haven't learned as much as I did 2 days ago at the library. I attended the bag lunch with 2 other sitting councilors of the day, and I learned more about trees than probably written in any book. Did you know that if you take a temperature under 2 trees within a few feet from a couple of trees, and you walk away 20 feet from those trees, that the difference in temperature is going to be 20 degrees. So what I learned 2 days ago changed my attitude towards green space, trees, and forests. And you know what? It's going to make a big difference on when I'm re-elected to City Council as to how I'm going to vote on when these issues come forward again. And I'm not saying this because this is an election issue. It's not. When you learn things and they sink into your head, you've got to keep them there and act on what you learn from people that know better than we do. Thank you very much for all of you for turning out. I really appreciate it. Thank you to all those others that participated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then Julius Bloomfield, same question.
Thank you, and yeah, thank you everybody for coming out tonight. And obviously, yes, you're as passionate about this city as we are. And I think that it's about our vision for the future of the city. This time is about the vision of what we want the city to become. And everybody here is going to have a slightly different vision, but it's all basically based on the same two premises, if you like. One is that climate change is happening and it is going to affect us. And the other is that the city needs to change. We need to change some things here to mitigate that, how it affects us as a city, but also our effect on the planet as well. So you have the unenviable task of selecting a team of 7 out of all of these people here that you feel will be best to lead this city to the vision that you have for the future. And I wish you luck in your selection. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to move the mic to the end of the table, just to give Lori a bit of exercise here. We're getting into the home stretch. Everyone's been very, very good about this. So we're going to start with Andrew Jacobite. And again, for everyone, it's the same question. Closing remarks and a chance to share what new directions you would propose to prepare for the climate challenges ahead.
Thank you. And again, thanks for everyone coming here and the opportunity to share some of our ideas and hear what everyone has to say. I think more we can do to create a walkable community. Unfortunately, where I live, it's 5 or 10 minutes to downtown where I work. It's 5 minutes to the event center. It's a couple blocks to the beach, to the parks, and what I argue some of the better restaurants, all within walking distance. And moving forward, I really like to see the city really be aggressive about a community solar project. You may have heard of that. Nelson does it, so citizens actually can participate and buy a panel or two that all sit on top of city infrastructure, and then get a dividend or a generation credit as being part of that. And I think generally people want to be green, but they need someone to hold their hand, to lead by example, and to make it easy to invest or participate in the process. And I think that's part of my commitment to making that, should I be lucky enough to be on council again. Thank you.
Thank you. And Isaac Gilbert, same question.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. Climate change is a very important issue, and as someone who worked as an arborist in the Lower Mainland and didn't get to talk about trees tonight, I do want to make a point about talking about that because it is a good direction to move towards. And I want to bring up a story of a community member coming up to me. I'm also was the chair of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and we had a really tough decision to make down at Skaha Lake Park about selling a property because the goal of the city was to expand the waterfront there. But right now, it's really hard to do that with housing so high. We had a decision of, do we use that money? Can we sell the place and use that money elsewhere in a park? And it was a hard decision, and a lot of people in the community did not like it. And it was hard for me to make that decision. But the one thing that I will say that, if elected, I would pledge to put a motion to use that money that was sold on that house for parks. It is locked away. in a fund for parks, but it can be used for other things. And one thing I would love to see that money be used is to purchase the property at Campbell Mountain and turn that into a regional park, one that's a gem for all of us here to go enjoy and to help, protect that area. And also too, I'm more than willing to pledge to have a tree protection bylaw in the city, requiring that trees are protected and an aggressive plan to plant boulevard trees along all of our streets when streets get turned over and reconstructed years down the line. Because that is how we're going to make our city more livable, walkable, and a very pleasant place to live in when we have more trees. Thank you.
Thank you. And Frank Regier.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here this evening. A couple of items that I don't think were quite adequately discussed related to this protection. One is the electrical system. We talked a lot about using electricity and trying to eliminate natural gas, for example. I don't think have given enough attention to will we have adequate electricity to supply for this, for our cars as we stop using fossil fuels in the cars. Is there enough energy? And I have heard stories that, if we really do get everything converted over, would it really take 7 Site C equivalents to feed the power grid? And I know there's solar and all sorts of alternative sources as well. But anyway, that's one item. And a second one would be, we didn't talk really about drought. And you might have seen a newscast item this evening on the news that Vancouver and Vancouver Island are just in extreme, 60 days or something without rain. The rivers are really low. Anyway, a lot of probably salmon runs are going to be handicapped on that. So yeah, thank you so much. It's a really, really important issue that we're talking about here, and hopefully the council that you elect, and I hope I'm one of them again, will be able to find some solutions for what we all want. Thank you.
And Katie O'Kell, closing remarks and ideas for new directions.
So I want to take a quick minute to reflect on our last forum. It's been a crazy 2 weeks with these 21, give or take, candidates. And in my opinion, I think the city would be lucky to have any one of us representing us on council. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of dedication and hard work to be sitting up here and to be sitting next to 20 of you all. It's just been an honor, so thank you to all of you. Yeah. I talked a lot about trees. I'm really glad I was able to share that love with you as well as with my colleagues. There were lots of things I didn't get to talk about, so I will do them very quickly. The first one is we've got these fantastic bike lanes, but we don't have lockers at the end of them so that you can't go shopping and not have your bike stolen. It's the final piece of the puzzle. We need gray water in our new subdivisions. Why are we using drinking water to flush our toilets and water our lawns? We also need to be encouraging solar, sort of mimicking what Frank said. People in California are using generators to power their electric cars. So I think that we need to, literally. So I think that we really need to be talking about our electrical supply and cutting the red tape from the city so that everyone can have solar and it's making sense and it's profitable. Finally, of course, I'd like to finish on trees. With our clear cutting with our lumber, why are we planting monocultures? As a biologist, monocultures are terrifying. I could go on another big rant about that, but I will leave you with that. On October 15th, I really hope that you give me your vote of confidence. Please remember Katie O'Kell. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to Larry Schwarzenberger.
Thank you very much. I for sure am no expert in climate change, and I really appreciate the thoughtful comments from my colleagues here, and the afternoon I spent reading the city's action plan on climate action. It was actually a really good read, and I really appreciate the work that went into that report. I too am going to talk about trees to finish here. I think council should implement a program to catalog all the mature trees in the city. When a tree is taken out, we should be planting 2 more to replace it, and I think we should try and avoid taking out mature trees at all costs. Builders should be encouraged to bring as many trees as possible into their landscaping plans for new developments and for sure boulevards. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all on the 15th when you vote. Thank you.
Thank you. And Campbell Watt?
Thank you. I'll take the opportunity, if I may, to say thanks to First Things First, to Okanagan College for hosting us, and to Peach City Radio, which I think has been overlooked a couple of times at these forums. They're doing a great job, and I said my daughter wanted to be here. She's listening to it. So thank you for doing that. I've heard a lot of comments today up and down the table about how the city's actually already doing some things. So I don't know that we necessarily need to go in new directions, but we absolutely have to get more focused and aggressive on moving forward. One of the biggest things that we can do as a council is set strategic priorities, and that's how we start a term. What we need to do is make climate change one of those top priorities. And that's the power we hold. That's where our biggest influence is going to be, and I would like to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Helena Konens.
Well, thank you again for tonight. It's been great. As Katie said, this is one of our last ones, I think, although I'll have to check my emails. We might be invited to something else tomorrow night I don't know about. But it's been great. But I want to say that there are a lot of really great things happening that are addressing climate change locally. And I want to thank First Things First for putting on the Clean Energy Expo last weekend. I learned so much. How many of you guys were there? It was amazing, wasn't it? And one of the I wanted everyone here to know who wasn't there. Everyone at the table here is running for council. That there's this an example of what's happening locally is the Net Zero Enterprises, and I was fortunate enough to get a tour of their facility last year. But what they're doing is they're chipping plastic bottles. They found a way to build small machines where you could chip plastic bottles so that you could use them to be made into other things. Right now, we ship our plastic bottles to either Vancouver or the United States, and so this is a company locally, and I want anyone who does get on city council here to support a company like that, which could put Penticton on the map and address a huge issue with climate change. So again, thank you, First Things First, for presenting that table, and everyone get to know that company. And thank you again, I'm Helena Konans.
Thank you. Next, Katie Robinson.
I'd like to take a minute to thank you all for coming and thank everybody involved in doing such a great job tonight setting this all up. I'd also like to take a minute to thank one of my daughters who's a water quality officer for the province of BC who graduated from this college. She prepped me really well. I'm sure there will be many new directions coming. But until then, I'm going to be continuing to promote the Fire Smart program here in town. It's been a passion of mine for years, and I plan on continuing that. And if you haven't yet seen the city's new plans for our Northern Gateway project, please do. This is an excellent example of greener, more sustainable building in our community. So on October 15th, I hope you vote for positive experience and re-elect me, Katie Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ryan Graham.
To reiterate everyone else, thank you for everyone that's here tonight. Passion creates progress. We need progress with solar and wind initiatives. On Monday, our mayor made a comment that we had millions and millions and millions of dollars in the bank. $156 million is in the bank right now. It's time to reallocate some funds. In my personal opinion, this has been overlooked, and what we need to do is magnify this issue on a far grander scale. Social media right now with engagement to the city is non-existent. We need to get this to a far broader demographic. In the crowd tonight, we have everyone. We have some younger people. It's good to see that. But it's time we get this on a far grander scale and we actually start having discussions on this. Progress creates results, and it's time to get some results. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you on the 15th. Ryan Graham.
Thank you. And now Nicholas Kruger.
Hello. So anyone who's been attending the First Things First would have seen my first cousin, I call him brother, Tim Lazard, speak. He's a spokesperson for energy efficient houses within the reserve communities, and he first learned about it when I slept on his couch for 3 years. The zero carbon footprint. But yeah, he talked to me about community development, and he was telling me that climate change is part of community development and how we need to improve walk and bike scores within our communities, and some of the ways of doing that is not just by creating bike lanes and walkways, it's also by moving amenities closer to people so that it's easier and closer for them to walk and not drive so much, and that'll change our carbon footprint a lot. He taught me a lot of things, and I just wanted to thank and acknowledge him tonight for that, because as an Indigenous person, it's our inherent responsibility to protect the environment first and foremost. Again, my name is Nicholas Kruger. Thank you.
Thank you. And now James Miller.
Thank you. Andrew Jacobite's one of the most modest people I know, but I want to send a shout out. I think one of the greatest climate activists in our community's history was your wife, Leanne, and we all miss her every day. A major challenge to climate warriors as well as elected bodies is that there are still climate change deniers. Some are the same people who also rejected science during the pandemic. These are 100 hate letters sent to me calling for me to be thrown in jail, threatened with lawsuits, all in my role as a journalist. I find it troubling that dozens of people choose to picket our Member of Parliament's office every Tuesday afternoon. It's concerning me to know that the same individuals forced the MP's secretary, one of my favorite people, office manager, to have to work from home due to the harassment and the non-belief in science. I'm very sad to know there are people who are bitterly angry, but I'll leave you with this. Hate, fear, and vengeance are all powerful emotions, but so are love, compassion, and forgiveness, and we need all those. I'm James Miller. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. And finally, we have Lindsay Hall.
Hi again, guys. My name is Lindsay Hall. I hope I win your confidence for council. You'll be the cheapest engineer you ever employed. Promise. You know, getting back to the task at hand here, as I pointed out, I promoted ON. I'm gonna confess today, I am partisan. I am. I'm partisan to each and every one of the citizens of the city. Majority rule. I'm never going to be driven by special interest groups. Thank you very much. Now, last night we're at a forum that the developers and real estate agents want more development, but we're here with a bunch of conscientious people who realize the need for water conservation. I've asked for close to 20 years, has anyone calculated what population our community can support on our water supply? And I get dumb looks. You know, I come from little old Manitoba where building codes are far, far ahead of here when it comes to energy efficiency and such. The poor guys, though, they can't use a heat pump like we can out here. A heat pump goes a long way. When I was a kid, all school kids were given a tree sapling, to take home and plant. Winnipeg's a pretty green city after so many generations of school kids planting their little trees, aren't they? Well, why can't we do that ourselves? Thank you very much. Please vote for Lindsay Hall for council. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's give a hand to all of the council and mayoral candidates who've taken their time to come and share their ideas with us, and who have been so good about adhering to time limits and answering the questions. So we thank you very, very much for that, and thank you, everyone who showed up, who is interested and cares about the community. Another shout out to Peach City Radio. We appreciate the work that you're doing. If anyone wants to get a recording of tonight's program, you can go to CFUZ.ca and you can download and listen to it or share it with someone else. So thank you very much, and many, many thanks again for this beautiful space we have from Okanagan College. Just one last reminder, in case anyone wasn't aware, get out and vote. The advance voting is on October 8th and 13th between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. at the Penticton Trade and Convention Center. The general voting day is October 15th between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. also at the Trade Center or at the Seniors Drop-In Center. So hope everyone will go and cast their vote, talk to their friends, share the information. We do have a little bit of time here. We did such a great job. We actually ended up a few minutes earlier than we thought we might. That's a miracle. But thanks to everyone. If anyone wants to stick around for a while, the college will be open, and you can ask questions of candidates that might stick around or talk to each other. And on that note, I will again thank everyone and wish you all a good night and happy voting.
Well, Nils, that's our last broadcast of the forum for this municipal election of 2022. What did you think?
In all honesty, I think this was the most valuable for me personally in the decisions I'm going to be making on voting day. It was engaging for me. A lot of the conversations and topics covered were things that I could relate to. So yeah, I think it was really, really good, honestly.
I'm really actually quite pleasantly surprised at some of the answers I heard from a lot of the councillors. I think that it's pretty clear that most of them have environmental consciousness and are at least speaking about sustainability and speaking out about the environment and the ways in which if elected, they could do good things for the city, and so that's a very promising thing for me.
Yeah, I totally am on the same page there. A lot of the things they spoke to are just as a resident of Penticton myself, and homeowner, and not a renter, not a landlord, but a lot of the things they brought up, it's like I can relate to that. Those are things that align with me, and it was not necessarily consistent, but everything that they responded with made sense.
And it would remain to be seen, I guess, once the educated populace vote a team of people in, whether they will live up to their word and enact some of these policies and plans that they spoke about tonight. I think I'd look forward to seeing that happen.
Time will tell. I'm also looking forward to it.
Time will tell. That's right. So you're listening to Peach City Community Radio, 92.9 FM in Penticton or online at CFUZ.ca. Thank you very much for allowing us to break into regularly scheduled programming in order to bring you all of these forums live. And if you're listening to these forums online, you visited us at CFUZ.ca, where we provided links to be able to download and to listen to these forums at your leisure. And we hope that in providing this service, all of you listeners out there will consider yourselves more educated voters and make great decisions on October 15th when it comes time to cast your ballot for your mayor and city council for 2022.
Yeah, I guess I'll just mention here that we are looking to be more involved in these processes in the coming years. So if you found this interesting or engaging and think you'd like to contribute your skills or your commentary or whatnot, definitely reach out to us. You can hit us up on the website, cfuz.ca, become a member of the radio station, and just let's have a conversation. Let's see what we can do. Let's make this better.
Yes, and I would also encourage anyone who listened to any of these forums online after the fact or live during our broadcast, you might want to consider making a donation to Peach City Radio. We are 100% volunteer-driven and volunteer-run radio station. We have no staff members, and every single person that makes this machine called Peach City Radio run is a volunteer and is very passionate about sustaining and bringing and sustaining community radio to Penticton. So please consider donating. You can head over to our webpage, CFUZ.ca, where there's a donate button at the top of the page, and you can make your donation online, or you can find our address on that page and send us a donation in the mail. We would appreciate any donation that you can afford to make. Every little bit helps keep this radio station going for the community of Penticton.
Well, I would say for sure that both you and I are quite passionate about this.
I think I do agree. I do agree. Myself. So this is I'm Dave Del Rizzo, and I'm the program director for Peach City Radio.
And my name is Nils Finson. I'm the technical director for Peach City Radio.
And we're both volunteer board members, and we're always looking for new members and new ideas for shows. Our annual general meeting is coming up in November, and we are constantly having Radio 101 sessions where we can engage with the public and teach you all a little bit more about how Peach City Radio works, and inform you as to how you can get involved in our organization.
Yeah. I mention that on my show quite often. Come on, join us. Let's do cool stuff on the radio.
Exactly. So thanks very much for listening, and thanks very much for allowing us, as I said, to interrupt regularly scheduled programming at this time. We thank you, and we will return you once again to that regularly scheduled programming on CFUZ 92.9 FM or online at cfuz.ca in Penticton, British Columbia.